What's going on this farm? A new coop is being prepared for the chicks. Why do farmers have to prepare in advance? Because newborn chicks are very sensitive to the environment. What do these little chickens need most? A clean place, warm and safe enough. Why do they collect near heat sources? Because the chicken's body doesn't retain its own heat well. So the cage is really important. Yes, because humidity can quickly become a problem. How do you know if the barn is warm enough? The thermometer will give us the first number. There's nothing dangerous about an incomplete shelter. Humidity and safety temperature can both lose control. What happens if the background is damp? Environment of chickens will quickly become unhygienic. So where do farmers start? From cleaning the entire sick area. What a good barn looks like. Clean, dry, warm, and ready before the chicken is put in. Why does this door have to be completely open? To inspect and clean each area inside. What the old filler layer can retain. Moisture and dirt from the chickens first. Should the old filler be retained? It is best to remove it completely before preparing it new. How old filler will be treated? Remove from the pinch area to start the cleaning process. Is it enough to just shovel the filler? The floor still needs to be cleaned. Are the for small corners worth considering? It's because dirt often accumulates in these places. Do the walls need cleaning? Because chicks can come in contact with them. There's a food delivery area. Must also be cleaned to limit contaminated food. What about drinking troughs? Clean troughs keep drinking water in better condition. Why wash the equipment? Dust and dirt can settle after each use. What clean food trough needs to achieve? No more old food dirt or grime. Is it important to sell clean drinking? It's very important because water is what the chicks use all the time. After cleaning, disinfection is required. Suitable sterilization helps to increase the level of hygiene of the tube area. When the barn is ready for the next step. When all surfaces are clean and completely dry, what we need to create a new background. A dry and suitable clean filler. Why check the filler before use? Because moist or dirty fillers will lose the benefit of the base layer. What to pay attention to in rice husk? It must be dry and free of dangerous foreign matter. Why check the filler before use? Because moist or dirty fillers will lose the benefit of the base layer. Why scratch it all? So that the entire area has a relatively uniform base layer. Should you leave the background in a thin place? No background should be distributed as evenly as possible. What benefit should it bring? Helps create a drier and more comfortable environment for chickens. If there is too thin, why do you need to add more filler? Why do it right now? Because after the chickens get into the coop, it's harder to fix the ground. How to check fillers. Observe and feel whether the base is clean and dry. This had to be the perfect background. This is a good place to start, but still have to monitor daily. Why need to crank the chicks separately? To control the space, temperature, and the movement of momentum. Where was the first crank placed? Around the planned area for chickens. Where was the first camera placed? around the planned area for chickens. What shape should the crank be? A suitable rotation helps the herd to be well distributed around the heat source. Why check the connections? To spin, not to spill or create dangerous gaps. What a spinner definitely needs: stable connection and no sharp edge. What do we see from above? A clearly limited area for chickens. Now what's most important? Heat source for chickens. Why check the wiring first? To reduce the risk of malfunction when the system is operating. Where the shade should be placed: above the pinch area in a safe and suitable position. Put the ball as low as possible. The altitude must be adjusted based on the actual temperature. There are four things more important than the brightness of your shadow: stable and safe heat supply ability. Year. Why check the distance from the background? To limit the risk of overheating or burning. Is it finished to turn the ball on? We still have to check the temperature. What does this warm light tell us? The repair system has begun to create a heat zone for the herd. What the farmer is checking: the whole system before putting the chicken in. Is the cage ready? Almost, but the temperature. That's the next important test. Where to put the thermometer? In areas where chicks really work. What does the number on the thermometer mean? It shows whether the current environment is hot or cold. What is the initial temperature? The first week is usually about 32 to 35 degrees Celsius. What if the temperature is not right? Adjustable height or heating power. Do you need to check again? Yes, because the temperature can change with the environment. What needs to be distributed? Heat zone so that chickens can choose the right location. Why watch the actual chicken? Because the behavior of the herd gives us a very clear signal. What if the chicken gets close to the heat source? Maybe they need more warmth. Are chickens in a bunch worth worrying about? It could be a sign that the area is getting too cold. What should the farmer do now? Temperature inspection and heating source adjustment. And is the adjustment enough? I don't need to see the reaction again. What happens when the chickens start to spread? It's often a sign that the environment has become more pleasant. What does the relative distribution of chickens mean? The temperature is creating a more suitable habitat. What if the chicken stays away from the ball? Maybe the area under the heat source is overheating. What's the most important lesson? Don't just look at the thermometer, look at the chickens. What chicks need after having enough heat? A clean and accessible food source. Feeding trough should be set high or low, low enough for chicks to easily reach. How clean the feed trough needs to be. No old food or dirt buildup. When is the food put in? After the dining area has been cleaned. Why not pour too much food? To limit waste and reduce the risk of food getting dirty. Is one trough enough? It depends on the number of chickens and the size of the coop. Is it easy for chickens to find food? If the trough is properly ranged, they'll be easier to access. Is this a good sign? Chicken eat actively. It's often shown that they've begun to adapt. There's one more thing we can't do. Clean drinking water. Where the drinking trough is placed in a stable position. Easy access and limited flipping. Can the chicken find water? A layout. This will help them quickly access. Why water should always be clean. Chicks use water several times a day. Can the chicken find water? A reasonable layout. It will help them get closer quickly. How the four countries need to be prepared. Clean, easily accessible, and frequently changed. There's one more thing we can't do. Clean drinking water. Why a small sip of water is important. Because water was an essential part of the early days. Is there a bug to avoid around the drinking trough? Let the water wet the filler and create a moist background. Does the cage need to be completely closed? No chicken still needs clean air. What do these four vents do? To help exchange the air in the quadrangle. How should the air circulate? Gentle but does not create wind directly into the herd. Is the strong wind good? Not especially when the chicken is very small. What if there's wind? Need to adjust the shield to protect the wetted area. Why check the wires? Because the repair system works continuously. It needs to be safe. Is the electrical connection point important? It's very important because this is a place where no incidents are allowed. Where should the power line be? Out of reach of chickens and away from fillers. 4. Is the enclosure complete? We've tested the final thermostat for 2 glasses. Water and safety. 4. Why check it last time? Because a small bug can also affect the chicks. What does stable temperature mean? The environment is more ready to welcome the herd. The important moment has come. How chickens will be introduced into the new environment. How do chicks react when they're released? They're starting to explore the heat of food and water. What to observe right now? How the whole herd is distributed throughout the watershed. What does a distributed flock of chickens mean? That's a sign. It's about adapting to the environment. Can you leave the chicken alone after releasing it? The first few hours need to be observed regularly. Why record the temperature? To see how the environment changes and adjust in time. What does a good doghouse need? Clean, dry enough, warm enough water, enough food. And always be watched. Can you rest assured after the first day? Sick cages need to be checked every day. I need to see something every day first. Look at the chickens before you look at the equipment. What the barn floor needs to check. Dryness, cleanliness, and areas prone to moisture. What if the background starts to get wet? Handle immediately. Do not let the moist area prolonged. Does food need frequent inspection? Have enough use and always keep the dining area clean. What about drinking water? Must always be clean and replenished in a timely manner. Do the 3 temperatures need to stay the same forever? Need to monitor and adjust to the age of the chicken. And 3 actual conditions. So what does a standard barn need to check? Food, water, heating, ventilated, and safe. So what's the secret to a good barn? It's not an expensive device. It's about being prepared right from the start. I want the chickens to start healthy. Let's start with a clean, dry pen that's warm enough and taken care of every day.